You feel it, don't you? That quiet, stubborn uneasiness that doesn't belong to the room, yet somehow fills it. The night feels thicker than usual, like the darkness itself has weight. The ceiling above you disappears into shadow. Your phone screen went dark minutes ago, but sleep refuses to come. Somewhere outside, tires slide softly across asphalt, and the sound lingers longer than it should, like the world is whispering instead of moving. You turn over, adjust the pillow, pull the blanket higher, still awake. Because something isn't right. And the unsettling part isn't that something is wrong around you, it's that something feels unfinished inside you. What if this restlessness isn't random? What if it isn't stress or caffeine or overthinking? What if this is how a warning feels before you realize it's one? You didn't plan to drift. Nobody does. At some point, life simply became full, not chaotic, just crowded. Responsibilities stacked gently like papers on a desk you meant to organize later. Work demanded attention, messages needed replies, bills arrived with their polite but persistent deadlines. You kept moving, solving things, fixing things, holding everything together just well enough to avoid collapse. From the outside, your life looks normal, stable even. You function, you smile, you show up. And spiritually? Well, you told yourself you were fine. Not perfect, not deeply disciplined, but fine. You still believe, you still pray sometimes, you still feel that flicker of faith when life gets heavy. That counts for something, right? That's what you told yourself. And to be fair, nothing dramatic pushed you away. There was no grand rebellion, no loud rejection, no cinematic turning point where you declared independence from God under a stormy sky. It was quieter than that. Just small postponements. The prayer you skipped because you were exhausted. The scripture you meant to read but never opened. The conviction you softened with, "I'll deal with that later." Later is such a polite word. It sounds responsible, mature, temporary. But later has a way of quietly turning into never. You remember nights years ago that felt different. Nights when the air smelled like wet grass after rain, and your heart felt wide open. Nights when your prayers were messy but honest. When you spoke to God like someone who expected an answer, not like someone leaving a voicemail they assumed wouldn't be returned. You made promises then. You said you'd stay close. You said you wouldn't let distractions win. You said you'd listen if he spoke. And life didn't crash after that. It just kept moving, slowly, subtly, almost politely. The urgency faded. Faith didn't disappear. It just slid into the background like music in a store, always playing, rarely noticed. Until tonight. The strange day. Today wasn't terrible. That's what makes it harder to explain. Nothing catastrophic happened, no shocking news, but small things felt slightly misaligned, like a picture frame hanging 1 degree crooked. A conversation left a strange aftertaste in your mind. A moment of silence felt longer than it should have. A passing thought returned 3 times for no obvious reason. You dismissed each one individually. Coincidence, mood, fatigue. But now, lying here in the dark, they don't feel separate anymore. They feel like pieces of a message you almost read, but didn't. You think about how warnings usually work. They rarely arrive loud at first. In the Bible, almost never did. Jonah wasn't swallowed by the fish immediately. First came the instruction, then the hesitation, then the detour. The storm only came after the quiet refusal. Lot's wife wasn't turned to salt without context. She was told clearly, "Don't look back." The consequence came after the moment of choice. Even David, the king after God's own heart, didn't fall overnight. His greatest mistakes began with small moments, lingering where he shouldn't, looking where he shouldn't, delaying what he should have done. Warnings often start as whispers, because whispers give you the dignity of choosing to listen.
Thunder usually comes later. And here's the uncomfortable part. You don't actually feel confused tonight. You feel aware. Somewhere deep down, beneath the rationalizations and the busy thoughts, there's a quiet clarity forming. You can almost name what's bothering you, but saying it out loud would make it real. Maybe it's something in your behavior. Maybe it's something in your priorities. Maybe it's someone you need to forgive. Maybe it's something you need to walk away from. It's not enormous, not scandalous, not the kind of thing that would make headlines or shock your friends, just significant enough that ignoring it keeps tugging at your spirit. Funny how the smallest inner nudges can feel heavier than the biggest external problems. You once asked God for a sign, a big one, something unmistakable, something dramatic enough that you couldn't possibly misunderstand it. Maybe a door slamming shut, maybe an opportunity falling from the sky, maybe a sudden undeniable revelation. Instead, what you got tonight is restlessness, not exactly cinematic. No glowing angel in the corner of the room, no thunder shaking the windows, just you, a quiet ceiling, and a persistent feeling that something needs attention. It's almost ironic. We ask for fireworks. God sends a whisper. We ask for clarity. God sends conviction. And somehow, the quieter it is, the easier it becomes to pretend we didn't hear anything at all. The air in the room feels cooler now. You notice the faint hum of electricity somewhere in the walls, the soft fabric of the blanket against your hand, the rhythm of your breathing. Everything ordinary, yet nothing feels ordinary. Because the stillness around you feels intentional, like the world pressed pause just long enough for you to notice what you've been avoiding. Outside, a dog barks once, sharp, sudden, then silence folds back over the neighborhood like a curtain. Your heart beats a little louder. Not panic, just awareness. You remember the story of Samuel as a child, lying in the temple at night when he heard his name. Samuel. He thought it was Eli calling. Got up, walked over, wrong source. Back to bed. Samuel. Again he got up. Again he misunderstood. It took time before someone told him the truth. If you hear it again, say, "Speak, Lord, for my servant is listening." The voice was real all along. The problem wasn't that God wasn't speaking. It was that Samuel didn't recognize the sound yet. Tonight, you wonder if you're in a similar moment, not hearing an audible voice, but sensing something unmistakably personal. You realize this isn't about fear, it's about direction. Right now, in this quiet, unremarkable night, you're standing at an invisible crossroads. No dramatic music, no flashing signs, just a simple internal knowing that a small adjustment now could prevent a much bigger correction later. Ignore it, and tomorrow will look exactly like today. Listen, and something shifts. The action required isn't huge. Maybe it's whispering a prayer you've been postponing. Maybe it's deciding to change one habit starting tomorrow morning. Maybe it's sending a message you've been avoiding. Maybe it's finally letting go of something you've been excusing. Spiritual turning points rarely feel heroic in the moment. They feel quiet, personal, almost invisible, until later, when you realize that was the night everything began to change. Here's something easy to forget. A warning is not punishment. A warning is mercy. It means the story isn't over yet. It means correction is still possible. It means God cares enough to interrupt your comfort before consequences have to interrupt your life. If he intended to abandon you, there would be no nudge, no conviction, no restless awareness tugging at your heart in the dark. Silence can be scary, but conviction is proof of attention, proof you're still seen, still guided, still loved enough to be redirected. So what happens now? You're still here, still awake, still aware. The ceiling hasn't changed, the room hasn't transformed, the night hasn't suddenly become mystical or glowing. The only thing that changed is that now you understand this moment matters. You don't need a dramatic speech, maybe just a whisper. God, if this is you, I'm listening. That's enough to start, because listening is where direction begins. And maybe years from now you won't remember the exact date of this night. You won't remember what time it was, or what you were wearing, or what song you last played on your phone. But you might remember this feeling, the quiet heaviness, the stillness, the realization that something small inside you needed to turn, and you chose not to ignore it. Tonight didn't come with thunder, no lightning, no audible voice from heaven, just a whisper, persistent enough to reach you anyway. And maybe that's all a real warning needs to be, because the question was never whether God could speak loudly. The question was all